EVE Online is a sandbox MMO that has lasted for over 20 years. An MMO so complex, it's built a reputation for its steep learning curve, and of course the nickname that everybody knows it by, the spreadsheet simulator. I want to dispel those ideas right at the start of this video. Yes, the spreadsheets exist, but they aren't the entire game. They're the tools that players use. It's like how people who have never played D&D think it's all just dice and math. You're kind of missing about what actually makes the game exciting. The drama, the story, and the friends you make along the way. What EVE really is a living, breathing universe. One that has been constantly evolving, surviving, and reinventing itself for over 2 decades. And while most MMOs from its release period are either dead or stagnant, EVE Online has constantly evolved with new gameplay mechanics and ideas over the years. The culmination of which has resulted in quite literally years of content to explore. EVE is not a theme park MMO. You don't queue for dungeons or collect loot or walk down the rails that the developers lay out. CCP Games, the studio in Iceland behind EVE, gives you the raw materials, but it is us, the players, that build the stories and often the chaos on top of it. EVE is designed to be a sandbox, and the players write the lore with their own stories. Stories that have built books and documentaries that rival even the Godfather trilogy in both length and depth. That very freedom is what makes EVE so different. It doesn't hold your hand or put you on guardrails. The tutorial will show you how to move, how to shoot, maybe how to make your first little bit of money, but they won't tell you what your purpose is or where your story begins. That is entirely up to you. For some, that may seem overwhelming. For others, it's the reason that we have been playing the game on and on and on. Over the past 20 years, EVE has built headlines unlike any other MMO. Massive wars that have costed thousands of dollars. Political betrayals that have reshaped the map overnight. Battles so large that they shatter world records. Other MMOs hand out content patches. EVE Online hands you history. And while the question may be simple, is EVE Online worth playing in 2025? Well, just as complex as the game is, that's a complex answer, and unfortunately one I can't answer for you. But as someone who has been playing this game for over 10 years, I am going to try my hardest to cut through that complexity and help you decide if the so-called EVE niche is right for you. Describing EVE Online can be tricky. On the surface, it may seem like a spaceship MMO, but in practice, it's more like part MMO, part RTS. You're not sitting in a cockpit dogfighting like Star Wars. You're commanding your ships with strategy and planning. Positioning, timing, and coordination matter way more than twitchy reflexes. The game is separated into a ring-like map system, with each section of the game changing the mechanics drastically. Where you decide to settle down will determine how you play the game. Players begin in HiSec, the so-called safe space that is patrolled by NPC police that kill anyone who commit aggressive actions. It's basically the shallow end of the pool. You get to mine, run missions, and dabble in trade. On paper, it may seem safe, but in practice, not really. Player pirates who gank and trade scammers totally exist, and outside of the 4 starter systems, everybody is fair game. Moving on to the middle ring, you'll get to low security space, or low sec, and the training wheels come off. PvP is always on the table, with some minor restrictions. Pirates, ambushes, and small gang fights are a part of daily life. The rewards are better than high-sec, but so are the risks. The outermost ring is constituting nullsec, the true lawless space. Here, there are no NPC rules, and player empires have built themselves, died, and lived again. This is where most massive alliances live, and where the majority of the player base is as well, carving up the galaxy into their own kingdoms. Wars here can involve thousands of players and reshape the map overnight. This is EVE's raw carnage zone. Build your own massive empire, or join an alliance and fuel the war machine. There is also 3 wild frontiers, the so-called bonus modes of EVE. There's wormholes, where instead of traveling through stargates, entrances and exits shift daily, and the map for wormholes changes for every player every single day. Paranoia is part of the gameplay here. There is Putchfin, a hostile endgame region with its own strange rules, birthed out of an expansion that came out during the COVID years. And finally, faction warfare, which turns part of low security space into organized battlefields, where players can enlist for the 4 major empires and fight for control. All of these together culminate into a massive total of over 7,800 plus systems for you to explore. What ties all of this together is EVE's unique system. In other MMOs, you level up, you spend skill points, and you get stronger. In EVE, there are no levels. Your skills train in real time, even when you are offline and out of the game. When your ship blows up in EVE Online, it's gone forever. No respawning with your gear. You either buy one, build a new one, and get back out there. So while most MMOs out there hand you quests, EVE hands you a galaxy. Where you live and how much risk you take, the stories you write along the way, that is the true gameplay loop. Where you live may define how you play, but who you live with defines whether you stay. EVE Online, at its heart, is a social MMO. The mechanics matter, but the real content is the people you choose to fly with. And as the game gets more complex and the more that you progress, one truth becomes painfully obvious. EVE Online rewards collaboration much more than solo play. Think back to that RTS idea. No general wins a war alone. Armies need units that fill different roles, and EVE works the same way. Mining fleets need haulers and boosters, industry relies on supply chain, combat fleets need scouts, tacklers, healers, commanders. Even moving cargo across dangerous space is safer with allies at your side. Every role connects to one another, and when it all comes together, corporations and alliances, the game's version of guilds, become more than just a guild. It becomes a functioning ecosystem. That is where the legends of EVE are born. Fleets of thousands clashing over star systems. Spies spending months undercover before pulling off the perfect betrayal. Leaders making decisions that ripple out to tens of thousands of players. These aren't scripted storylines. They're not developer made. These are real people making real choices in a single shared universe. And that is what gives EVE its edge over anything else you have ever played before. When you are logging into EVE, you're not just another pilot flying a ship. You're stepping into a living history book where every major battle, every betrayal, every diplomatic deal is written by the community itself. And that is where the common tagline from the developers comes to life.
The heroism and treachery of Capsuleers is woven into the fabric of New Eden. A story of industry, exploration, and conquest. However you choose to forge your destiny, do so with heart. New Eden is yours to shape.
All of this, the community, the politics, the history, it only matters if the game itself is still worth playing. And in 2025, that unfortunately means about talking about how the game is monetized and what the game looks like today. EVE uses what I call a pay-to-progress system, but in reality, it's closer, in my opinion, to pay to lose. Players can play for free as an alpha account, limited in both the skills you can train and the ships you can fly. It usually takes the average player around 2 to 3 months to hit the cap of the free-to-play account. And that's perfectly fine. For some people, they may be trying a new game for a couple of months, and alpha is perfect for that. Or you can pay the game subscription and become an Omega account, where you unlock everything, all the skills, all the ships, everything. Playing as a free-to-play does not limit you to any of the content. It only matters about what ships you can fly and what skills you can train. On top of that, there is Plex, a currency that you can buy with cash or earn with the in-game money. And yes, this means that you can pay for your subscription with your in-game grinding. On paper, a lot of this sounds like pay to win, but in practice, it is not even close. Whales beware. In EVE, ships explode, assets can vanish overnight, and group combat is much more like rock, paper, scissors. A brand new player in a cheap frigate can ruin the day of somebody flying a ship. Buying your way ahead does not guarantee victory. It just makes the fireworks much more expensive when you lose. You are not going to get crushed by someone's credit card or by the veterans. In EVE, experience, knowledge, and teamwork matter far more than how much your credit card is. If anything, people who spend big money in this game end up dying faster than they could complete their purchase. And that's the beauty of it. The monetization gives you a little bit of flexibility. You can grind, you can swipe, you can play for free. But no amount of money can replace the experience, planning, or knowledge of the community. If you try to pay your way to the top, you're more than likely just to become a laughingstock amongst veterans and probably posted to the public kill board to be laughed at even harder. So what about New Eden right now? In 2025, the game isn't just alive, it's evolving. We got not one, but 2 expansions so far in 2025, and it's barely the end of the summer. New sovereignty and new corporation tools have given current players more ways to shape their territory, as well as given new balance to ships and balance updates that breathe life into ships that we haven't seen used in a couple of months or years. On the political side of the game, which we have to touch on, Nullsec has tensions simmering. Smaller alliances are pushing against the old order, and the new mechanics are creating massive opportunities for disruption across the universe. Meanwhile, over the summer, faction warfare has been revamped, and has reignited the passion of low security space. The galaxy as a whole feels chaotic, but in a way that keeps every corner of it worth watching. The names on the map may change, but the essence hasn't. Every year has brought new wars, new betrayals, and new legends to the living history book that is EVE Online. So should you play EVE Online in 2025? The honest answer is, it really depends. EVE is not a game that will hold your hand. It won't tell you where to go or what to do. It's complicated, it's messy, and sometimes brutally unforgiving. You will lose your ships. You will make mistakes. And you will most likely feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information more than once. But that is also what makes this game special. In EVE, your choices matter, your losses matter, and your victories feel earned in a way that no game can ever match. It's not for everybody. Some players might bounce off because of the complexity. Others will fall in love with the freedom, the community, and the stories that unfold. As someone who has been playing this game for over 10 years, I can't tell you if EVE is the right MMO for you. What I can tell you is this: it is unlike anything else you have ever played before. I have spent years and years playing MMOs, and it's just the truth that once you fall in love with EVE Online, you will never find a game that matches its energy, its feeling of accomplishment, and of course, the complexity and the challenge. If you're willing to embrace the risk, learn from your mistakes, and find your place amongst this tightened, amazing community, then maybe, just maybe, this game is where your next great time sink happens. At the end of the day, EVE isn't about spreadsheets, or ships, or even space. It's about people. And the only question left is the one that the developers have been asking for years. What is your story?